All right. My name's Annette and I work within the marketing team here at HR Assured. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Navigating the Great Resignation. We're super excited to be able to present this webinar to you. It's a trending topic and I know that many businesses are concerned about this. Some people are even questioning if it really is a thing. Well, today, Sam will deep dive into that. And she'll address this topic, which is quite crucial to our compliance in workplaces. So before we get into the topic, I'd like to introduce you to Sam Carvin. Sam is a qualified senior workplace relations consultant here at HR Assured, and she regularly advises and supports our clients with a wide range of workplace and employment issues. And today I'm going to be your host. Sadly, Sarah is unwell, so we're wishing her a speedy recovery. And you're stuck with me. Okay, so also another introduction here. I'd like to introduce you to the family FCB. HR Assured is part of FCB, a group of companies that provide a range of workplace compliance solutions for businesses. Everything from workplace law and migration services to our outsourced HR. We've got a HRIS software called Enable HR, and we also now offer ISO certification with our latest acquisition, QMS certification services. If you're not familiar with HR Assured, I'll just explain the many benefits of partnering with us. You'll have access to our award-winning HR and WHS services, including our 24/7 telephone advisory service, a comprehensive HR audit, HR software, insurance and representation, work health and safety management, and a library of legal resources. And throughout the webinar today, you'll hear us refer to these resources that our clients have access to. Okay, so today, Sam will explain what the Great Resignation is, what your obligations are as an employer when it comes to resignation. She'll explain the constructive dismissal process. And lastly, she'll talk about engagement and retention strategies, and we'll get to your questions. Now, if you do have questions along the way, pop them in the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and we'll get to them at the end, like we said. Today's webinar is also going to be a little bit different, I think a little bit more fun. We're going to be using polls throughout the webinar, and they're quite easy to use. So a pop-up will appear on your screen and all you need to do is respond. Don't be shy. We won't know who has responded. Everything will be anonymous. Okay, so let's kick off with our first question to you. While you've probably all seen this term splashed across the media, do you know what the Great Resignation is? I will just launch this poll now. Bear with me. Okay, here it is. Pop in your response and we will then address this one. It's looking very interesting. Okay, I think I will be closing the poll soon. Get a few more seconds. Okay. I'm going to share the results now. Quite interesting. Great, 62% are quite aware of it, 12% no idea, and 27 have not heard about it. Okay. So over to you, Sam. Deep dive into this one.
Thanks so much, Annette, and welcome everyone. Now, you've heard the term the Great Resignation bandied about, but what exactly is it? Well, starting in approximately March 2021 and continuing into the present day, the Great Resignation is a term which describes the higher than normal quitting rates of American workers in particular. As the severity of the COVID-19 pandemic began to ease in the US, stemming from increasing vaccination rates, the unemployment rate decreased and job openings increased. The industries that were hardest hit by the pandemic, like hospitality, food service, leisure, and accommodation, have had the most job openings during this time. Many people have also gained a clearer idea during the pandemic of what type of work environment they prefer and considered switching jobs if their current position doesn't support their expectations or well-being. Though each individual's reasons for changing jobs or leaving the workforce are tied to their own personal circumstances, there are some common themes and theories for the Great Resignation. And a non-exhaustive list includes the following. Firstly, workers who potentially would have resigned in 2020, delaying their decision until the job market stabilized after lockdowns were over. Potentially burnout, causing people to seek work with a better work-life balance. Another one that's becoming increasingly common is employers directing a return to in-person work when remote work had, from the perspective of employees, proven effective. Also, pandemic experiences causing workers to reevaluate their life priorities. Low-wage workers having opportunities to earn more by changing employers. People wanting to live where they want instead of near their current job, and therefore switching employers if necessary to gain that flexibility. And also fewer people being willing to work for a company that doesn't align with their own personal values. People are also interested in changing jobs still for the more traditional reasons, like wanting better compensation and benefits, or having a lack of advancement opportunities in their current job. In the Australian context in particular, we saw the pattern continue. In between September and November last year, over 1 million Australian workers started new jobs, and about 300,000 left their jobs, stating they were looking for better opportunities. Now, what does all of this mean for you? It means that retaining employees has never been more challenging. In addition to all the usual factors employers have had to contend with in the past to retain their employees, they're now required to navigate the increasing appetite of their employees to conduct work from home and complete work that's aligned with their values and life priorities. With employees stating that toxic workplace culture and lack of recognition are their top reasons for resigning, a trusted partner in employment relations has never been more important for businesses. HR Assured can assist you with our bespoke HR audit, where a consultant partners with you on what we call the journey to compliance, and they identify potential issues that may stand in the way of your employees' engagement and work with you to rectify them. We also have a 24/7 telephone advisory service, which you can use for comprehensive case management surrounding your employees' engagement. In addition to that, our HR software solution called HRA Cloud can help you with documenting milestones and associated actions for your employees, which would lighten the administrative load for you.
Sam, awesome. Okay, we're going to our next poll, but before I do, I just want to remind all of our guests that if you do have any kind of workplace issue, I'd like to offer you a complimentary telephone advisory service call. All you need to do is scan the QR code, which is on your screen, and we'll show that a few times throughout this webinar. So if you want to make it happen, scan that QR code. All right, so we're going to launch this next poll here. Let us know, has an employee resigned from your business in the last 6 months? Okay, looking good. I will be closing off in a few seconds. Want to get in your last minute response there? Okay, here we are. Here are the results. 89% go with the yes. Interesting. 11% no, and 0 for the unsure there. So Sam, what can you tell us about that?
Well, look, Annette, I think that that's fairly indicative of the environment that we're seeing, and it matches up all the contextual information that I've just delivered. As I'm sure you're all well aware, resignations are incredibly challenging, and the environment that we're currently placed in beside the Great Resignation means that it's never been more difficult to deal with them. So in today's environment, there's nothing more valuable to you than a trusted partner, not only to guide you on a compliant path, but also to be a sounding board for a second opinion for the trickiest cases that you've got going on in your business. This is where HR Assured can play a part. As your trusted people partner for a fraction of the price of an in-house HR professional or employment counsel, we offer you the following. Unlimited advice and support 24/7 for people, managers, and business owners. You can call as many times as you like. The calls can go for as long as you like, and they can happen at any time of the day or night. You can speak with a qualified workplace relations expert every single time, and your advice is tailored for your specific business. And the more times that you call, the increasingly consultants become familiar with your business and can offer you bespoke advice that is tailored specifically to you.
Thanks so much, Sam. So, while resignation might seem simple, there are some tricky things to manage, such as finalising pay and other entitlements. And if you get this wrong, it can be quite risky. So let's go into the next poll here. When an employee has resigned, were you confident knowing the employee's pay and other entitlements? Okay, let's launch this poll here. Don't forget, if you do have questions along the way, pop them in the Q&A feature, and we will get to them at the end. Okay, so people are responding quickly. Okay, I think I'm ready to share these results. Okay, 71% knew what to do. That's great that they were confident. There's the 11% that weren't so confident, and then a few had to turn to the good old Google, which is really interesting and I guess can be also quite risky, right? So Sam, do you want to talk about how we can help in this situation?
Absolutely. So when employees resign, there are a number of things that they're entitled to in their final pay. And if any of these are not included, they may risk an underpayment claim to the Fair Work Commission. So these include, firstly, outstanding wages for hours worked, including penalty rates and allowances. Secondly, accrued but untaken annual leave, and that can include annual leave loading if it's applicable to your particular industry and business. And thirdly, accrued or pro rata, long service leave, if applicable. All of these entitlements can be difficult to keep track of, but fortunately, there's one place that can store it all for you. Our HR software, HRA Cloud, provides a bespoke and tailored option for you to integrate your employment records with your payroll data so that you can know your employee's current entitlement status with the click of a button. Given that errors in an employee's final pay can result in underpayment claims made to the Fair Work Commission, it's critical to get this right. Our software includes hundreds of legally sound documents, templates, and policies. You can follow legally compliant workflows and checklists, such as resignation, for difficult or complex processes that you otherwise might not know how to manage. You can also manage and store all your employee records safely in the cloud system. And you can, of course, most importantly, reduce the burden of HR admin with employee self-service systems.
Absolutely. Certainly a end-to-end solution for businesses. We can help with their HR and WHS needs. Okay, we're going to go on to question 4 now. And I have to admit, Sam, that over the years managing people, I've had a few surprise resignations, and keeping your emotions in check can be tricky, but it's really important as it can impact on the resignation process. So we're going to ask you this next question. When an employee has resigned, were you confident in your ability to manage your emotions? I'm going to launch poll number 4 now. Here we go. Over to you. Let us know what your experience has been. And remember, it is anonymous. We won't know who has responded. Okay, who was cool as a cucumber? And hey, sometimes not everyone can hide their emotions, so it can be hard. Okay, I'm going to share these results with you. Excellent. 85% were cool as a cucumber. And we have 15% who found it a little bit hard, and that's quite natural. So Sam, can you share your insights on this area?
Absolutely, Annette. And look, while it can be deeply emotional, and especially in smaller businesses, to lose people, it's incredibly important to maintain composure. So it's great to see that so many of you feel that you have the capability to do that. In these kinds of situations, we would recommend that you firstly acknowledge and accept the resignation, thank the employee for their time, show compassion for their situation, and protect yourself. Most importantly, protect yourself by documenting everything in writing, protect yourself by paying out the relevant entitlements that the employee is owed. In the long run, it will do you well. How do you get past the emotions of a resignation and back to business? Of course, by signing up to HR Assured. So that means that you can access the following: hundreds of gold standard HR and WHS resources at the click of a button. All of our resources are constantly updated to keep pace with changes in laws, and they are updated by award-winning employment lawyers. And of course, the entire organization is backed by our sister company, FCB Workplace Law, which is a recognized and award-winning specialist employment law firm.
Great, thanks, Sam. Okay, we're heading into the end of the questions. So Sam, I know that you work with many of our clients on the 24/7 telephone advisory service, and constructive dismissal is a common topic that we're hearing from our clients. And I guess it's an area that can be quite risky for businesses. So let's throw to the audience on this one. Do you know what a constructive dismissal is? We will explain what it is after we launch this poll. Over to you, audience. Okay, I'll give it a few more seconds and we can go into the results. Okay. Okay, great. So 42% say yes, they do know what a constructive dismissal is. 23% are no, and 35% have heard of the term but are unsure of the meaning. So Sam, do you want to shed some light on what a constructive dismissal is?
Of course. The Fair Work Act says that a person's been dismissed if they've resigned from their employment but were forced to do so because of conduct or a course of conduct engaged in by his or her employer. So breaking that down, even if a person has resigned, if they can argue that they were forced to do so, that could technically be seen as a dismissal and come with the relevant remedies associated with a dismissal. So examples of a constructive dismissal include an employer not providing a safe workplace, suggesting that an employee should resign, making it really difficult for an employee to actually do their job, and imposing unfavorable changes to the terms and conditions of employment, such as demoting someone or cutting their pay.
Okay.
We hope, of course, that nothing ever goes wrong in your workplace, but if it does and you're faced with an employment-related claim, be it an unfair dismissal, general protections, bullying, or underpayment claim, insurance with legal representation can be included as part of our service, which would mean that you would be represented if your claim were accepted at no extra cost. We would encourage you to consider whether any of your company's conduct could be considered as inducing an employee to resign. And if so, we'd be happy to consult with you about your exact risk profile. Please feel free to use the barcode on the slide to arrange a call with us.
Thanks. Okay, so we're moving on to our very last poll question here before we get to answer any of your own questions. So again, if you do have questions, pop them in the Q&A. Anything that comes to mind, Sam and I will get to that. So can you let us know, have you ever received a constructive dismissal claim? And launch this poll now. Okay, over to you. Let us know. Okay. A few more seconds. Looks like there's some responses climbing up. Okay. I'm going to end this poll now and share the results with you. So 5% have, 80% no, 15% are unsure. Okay, interesting. So Sam, what can you tell us about constructive dismissal and how you can protect your business?
Really interesting and varied results from that last poll. Well, firstly, the first way to be able to protect your business from a constructive dismissal claim is to be able to actually recognize constructive dismissal. So when an employee resigns, your first step should be to consider whether they actually have resigned. Have they abandoned their employment or advised you of their resignation? Was the resignation clear and unambiguous? Was it in the heat of the moment or given under some special circumstance? Was it given under pressure? If any of the above circumstances are identified, we'd advise you to get some professional advice to mitigate your risk. But the number one way to reduce your risk of a constructive dismissal claim or any dismissal claim is engagement and retention. Employee turnover is a symptom of deeper issues that have not been resolved within a business, which might include low employee morale, absence of a clear career path, lack of recognition, or poor employee-manager relationships. Decreasing employee turnover will in turn decrease your training costs, your recruitment costs, and your loss of talent and organizational knowledge. So here are some options for engagement and retention strategies that you might consider. Firstly, career development. If employees understand their prospective path within an organization, they might then be motivated to remain with the organization in order to achieve their personal career goals because they know that they can do that at the company they're currently with. Secondly, you might consider some development executive coaching. And what I mean by that is building competencies in your leadership and managers in order for them to effectively interact with their peers and direct reports and to promote a good organizational culture that makes people want to stay and that makes them feel heard by their leadership. The next one is an important one, generational alignment. With so many different generations working across the same organization, it's important to understand the different work values across various generations and to strategically handle those differences so that you can leverage the strengths and mitigate the learning points for each generation. The next one is effective onboarding. So making sure that you integrate your new employees in a structured way, which is key for engagement and retention. The next one is women's retention programs. So leadership development, mentoring, networking programs, all of these may encourage women in particular to remain in companies for longer and avoid turnover. The next is employee recognition programs. So things like bonuses, employee perks. These things, although a little materialistic, they do encourage employees to remain with companies. And lastly is the join, stay, leave model, which is quite well known. So the key step in developing a long-term retention strategy is to do an analytical exercise in determining why employees join, stay, and leave the organization and see what can be done about those specific analyses.
Thanks, Sam.
So if you don't have in-house counsel with expert knowledge in employment law or some in-house HR professional, it can be difficult to know if your business is complying or really leveraging everything they can out of their people and out of their management systems. An HR audit, we would argue, is the first step to protecting your business. Our HR compliance audit offers you the following. It's the first step to protecting your business. It uncovers risks and threats that might be present to your business that you may not be aware of or are aware of but don't know how to change. We also provide you with advice and support to fix issues we find and get you back on track. And the audit process works hand in hand with HRA Cloud. Our software and other services that we deliver to you would actively follow the audit process to assist you on the journey to compliance. Subscribers to HR Assured do also have some additional resources available. They're never kept in the dark with employment law developments. We provide regular updates and education sessions to ensure that you're in the know. We regularly distribute blogs and articles straight to the HRA Cloud dashboard and your inbox if that's how you choose to receive them. Every client receives a quarterly compliance report. We also give you access to client-only webinars and roundtable discussions with employment law experts. And also there is access to an account management program where, if that's the way that you prefer to deal in HR, you can deal with the same person on your journey to compliance and you can meet with them as often as you want, be it fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly. All of these options are available to subscribers of HR Assured.
Thanks so much, Sam. Okay, before we go over to your questions in the audience, I just want to offer participants the opportunity to book in a free HR health check, which is valued at $750. It's safe to say that conducting regular checks on your business's workplace practices is one of the best ways to avoid a compliance issue. Think wage theft, general protections claims, and unfortunately these matters can be costly and negatively impact your business's reputation. So when was the last time you checked your compliance? If compliance is on your mind, don't put it off. You can claim a 30-minute HR health check, and we're only offering this to 20 of our participants today. So to book that in, you just simply need to visit the website. Just pop in the QR code here. So get your phone out, scan that code and book it in. We'll also send you a link after the webinar. We'll be sharing the recording with you so that you can watch it again if you want to. Awesome. So let's go into questions now, because there are quite a few that I'm seeing come through. So give me a moment. I'm just going to shuffle through these. Okay, here's a good one for you, Sam. If I overpaid my employee in their last pay after resigning, do they have to pay it back? Wonderful question.
Yeah, really good question. And honestly, the best response I can offer you is maybe. It would depend on whether you have what's called a deductions agreement in place. A written deductions agreement between you and your employee allows you the opportunity to retain a sum from their final pay if you have their agreement to do so, and it's principally for their benefit. At HR Assured, we draft deductions agreements very frequently, and if this is an option that you're looking at exploring, we'd be happy to speak to you about your exact needs.
Awesome. We hope that answered your question. Okay, here's another one here. I do not have an employment contract in place with my employees. What is the minimum notice period without these terms in writing? Okay, Sam, over to you.
So while we'd always recommend employment contracts being put in place as a best practice approach, the minimum notice period is actually governed by the national employment standards in the absence of a written contract. The national employment standards have a cascading system depending on how long an employee served with a company. So for example, if an employee has been working with a company for less than a year, they're only owed 1 week of notice. But if an employee has been working with a company for, say, between 1 and 3 years, they're owed 2 weeks of notice. Notice provisions can also change depending on an employee's age, and in some cases depend on whether they've provided the correct amount of notice in the course of their resignation.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Okay, I'll get you the next question. They are coming through. So remember, if you do have a question, pop it in the Q&A feature, not the chat area. Okay, if I was planning on letting someone go and they then resigned, can I reject their resignation and still fire them? Interesting question. Sam, how would you respond to that?
Very good question, and one that we receive quite often over on the telephone advisory service. Unfortunately, an employer doesn't have the choice to accept or reject an employee's resignation. Usually employers will be recommended to acknowledge an employee's resignation, and then the employee works as usual, as normal, until the end of the notice period when their employment will end. But if you prefer an employee not return to the workplace following their resignation, there are certainly options we can explore to make that happen.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Okay, there's another question here. We are heading into the end of the webinar here, but I'll try and get this one over. My employee has resigned and has also put in a week of annual leave. Do I have to accept a leave request? Ooh.
Well, while annual leave is accepted in discussion between an employee and an employer, so it's advised that you'd only reject annual leave that's been validly accrued by your employee on what's called reasonable business grounds. And I know that seems like a bit of a loaded term. So as for what reasonable business grounds are, this really will vary from business to business. Potentially consultation with a consultant or a lawyer who's aware of your specific business conditions and practices might give you more comfort in making decisions that are less black and white and more so in the grey areas.
Okay. We do have a couple more questions in the Q&A, but it's looking like we're running out of time. So I think we might be able to take them offline if that's the case. If you do have a question that's gone unanswered, you can get in touch with us for a free consultation call, and we will be able to provide those details to you in an email after this webinar. We'll also provide the presentation to you in that email as well. And thank you, Sam. The presentation was terrific. And I think it really was, quite an interesting topic for everybody. So once again, book in that health check, and we'll see you at the next webinar, and have a wonderful day.